Sign chair.
Dave Pratt, voting member.
Ron Bush, CNP specialist for the state committee.
Rhonda Rutter, Jefferson Soil and Water.
Pat Crash, Jefferson County Soil and Water.
Tyler Knapp, program analyst with the state committee.
Greg Albrecht, Ag Environmental Management Coordinator of the State Committee.
Cunningham, State Committee, Field Staff of the North Country.
PJ Emmerich, State Committee, Field Staff, Regional Coordinator for the Finger Lakes and Central New York area.
Brennan Jordan, CNMP Specialist with the State Committee.
Dan Welch, Advisory Member for Cornell Cooperative Extension. Over to you, Bethany.
So I'm Bethany Bisdu, Executive Director of the State Soil and Water Conservation Committee.
Melissa Gordon, Administrative Assistant.
Darren Hickling, voting member.
Scott Ryan, voting member.
Jennifer Clifford, CRF Program Manager.
Caitlin Stewart, President, Conservation District Employees Association.
Brian Steinmiller, Assistant Director, Division of Land and Water Resources, Ag and Markets.
Elizabeth Walters, Deputy Commissioner.
Ag and Markets.
Do we have anybody else online that needs to be introduced, Bethany?
Yeah, I'm going to do just a quick roll call of the folks on the line. First being Erica Goodman, voting member.
Hi everyone, Erica Goodman, voting member. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just do a quick down our state committee staff. Is Ben Luskin. Tim Clark. Scott Bickbaum. I think he will be joining the Syracuse location just a few minutes late today. Victor DiGiacomo.
Morning, Victor Giacomo, Region 1 Analyst for Western New York, joining you from the road today.
Thanks, Vic. Drive safe. And I'll just do a quick roll call of our other advisory members. Do we have any representative from our Ag and Markets? Okay. Cornell Cals.
Hey everyone, Brian Rahm from Cornell Cows.
Morning, Brian.
Jared Popley as well.
Thanks, Jared.
Okay. How about DEC?
Morning, Sarah Latessa, Division of Water CAFO program.
Department of Health?
Morning, everybody. Paul Kaczmarczyk, State Department of Health, Bureau of Water Supply Protection.
Good morning, excuse me. Good morning, everyone. Morgan Tarbell, Bureau of Water Health, Bureau of Water Supply Protection, Department of Health.
Department of State?
Hi, Kate Blackburn.
SUNY ESF?
Good morning, Steve Shaw from SUNY ESF.
And NRCS? Okay, and then we'll just say a quick welcome to all the districts and other folks who are joining via the call-in webinar option. Please feel free to enter your name and your agency or district into the chat for our meeting minutes. Back to you, Dale.
Great, thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. We've got a great attendance. Next is review and approve minutes. Do we have any additions or corrections, changes, anyone? Motion to approve, please.
Motion so moved.
Moved. Seconded?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Go to voting. Dave?
Aye.
Erica?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
Approved. Thank you. Annual report. Staff and budget updates.
So I neglected to remember that Abigail's on vacation this week, so I will give a brief update on the 2022 State Committee and AEM annual report. A couple of weeks ago, we were able to finalize that report and sent out a link to all of our districts and advisory members and partners, so you can access a digital copy of that report. We are currently in the process of getting a really nice printout, kind of trifold magazine of the actual report that will be distributed once we get those copies, but that can be a little bit of a process. So in the meantime, please make sure you are able to enjoy that digital version of the annual report. Has a lot of great information and statistics and highlights a whole year full of what soil and water districts from all over the state were able to accomplish through the state committee programs and, on their own in their counties. There's a lot of great pictures, a lot of great project highlights. And this year we worked to incorporate, a new component to the annual report where we try to estimate the reductions or the impacts that the work we were able to support had on the environment. So through Tyler's hard work and Abigail and everybody else who worked on getting those numbers together, we were able to use some models to estimate, what we were able to accomplish in terms of nutrient and sediment reduction and greenhouse gas mitigation, all that great stuff. So hopefully you were able to enjoy it, and we'll get you a very nice hard copy as soon as possible. In terms of correspondence, there is nothing to share with the state committee today. And I will, before turning things over to Brian, give a brief update on the budget, because I don't think we've had a state committee meeting since the budget was passed. But early May, the state budget was finally approved, which included the fiscal year 2024 Environmental Protection Fund, which supports all of the programs that are administered by the State Soil and Water Conservation Committee. The 2024 EPF was approved at $400 million, and some highlights from that budget include $21 million for farmland protection, with part of that being $1 million for the Tug Hill Tomorrow Land Trust and $97,000 for the Cornell Land Classification and Master List of Soils. 1.85 million for biodiversity stewardship, $19.5 million for the agricultural non-point source pollution control and abatement program, which includes carve-outs for Cornell IPM, the Cornell Cooperative Extension of Suffolk County, and the Cornell Pest Management Program. Soil and Water Conservation Districts, specifically the state aid to districts line, was appropriated at $16 million, which is a pretty sizable increase over what was appropriated in last year's Environmental Protection Fund. $18.55 million for invasive species, including $120,000 for the Cornell University Plant Certification Program. There is $7.95 million for the New York State Climate Adaptation, including $200,000 for the Wood Products Development Council, which is now being headed up by the Division of Land and Water Resources. We have $15.25 million for the Climate Resilient Farms Program. From that also includes $500,000 for Cornell Soil Health Program, and a new line item which includes $500,000 to maintain forests and woodlands located on agricultural land for the purpose of carbon sequestration. The Ocean and Great Lakes Program, which supports our ecosystem-based management programs, was allocated $22.5 million. The Water Quality Improvement Program was appropriated 22 million. And lastly, the waterfront revitalization program received 14.275. That is maybe old news for folks, but I did want to make sure we updated at this state committee that that budget was passed, and we are moving forward with our next rounds, developments for our next rounds of funding.
Excellent, thank you. I think you're looking, do you have any staff updates?
I will pass the mic over to Brian for that one.
Thank you, Bethany. Thank you, State Committee. Glad to be here today. I just wanted to announce to the State Committee, to all our partners, that yes, there is a staff update here. And that is that as a part of our division's reorganization process that we've been working through over the last couple of years, we were able to finalize a big part of that new organizational chart, and that is the hiring of a principal environmental analyst to oversee the AEM program, oversee all the programs that fall under the AEM umbrella, and so overall support division and state committee programs and staff, work very closely with the executive director of the Soil and Water Committee, me as the assistant director, Mike as the director. And I'm happy to announce that the individual serving in that role is Greg Albrecht as the division's new principal environmental analyst. And very excited to have Greg in this position and to just continue to work with him in this capacity. And, all of the just profound technical knowledge that he brings with this position has already paid dividends, and really looking forward to having him at the helm to help us as we really expand our programs to meet new challenges and opportunities. So Greg, congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations, Greg.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you to everybody.
And that's it for staff updates.
Okay.
For now.
Okay, if that's all on them, then we will go to the Ag 9-point source with Bethany and Tyler.
Tyler, if you want to go ahead and take the mic on this one.
Sure.
For this month, I do not have any Ag 9-point source amendments to present to the state committee. Just the first time in a long time.
That's good.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Bethany.
So you went through quite a few of them, and they're into the working season, so they're probably so darn busy they can't even do it.
That's true. We did have quite a few closeouts too, so that was good. So quick dashboard update for Ag 9-point. Still 8 active rounds, 373 total contracts. Of those total contracts, we're hovering just above $121 million total. We still have 17 pending contracts for round 28. Some of those are active now. Total pending contract amount is just under $7 million. Active contracts, 168 active contracts. Like I said, a few completed. So there's 172 completed, and that totals just over $55 million. So, yeah, some good work the last month, but we're getting there. Adding more as we're closing some out.
That's right. It's a balancing act. So we're, as Tyler just mentioned, we're kind of in the process of making sure we get all of our round 28 contracts fully executed. Folks from all over this department are working really hard on that. And then I will mention that with round 28, that is still open, and districts are able to submit applications. The deadline for round 29 is fast approaching and is June 26th, 4:30 p.m. So I think that's next week already, next Monday. Following that deadline. We will take a couple of weeks to review the applications for completeness and eligibility, and then pass them off to reviewers for scoring. If all the timing shakes out the way we are hoping that it will, I am tentatively planning to be able to present a ranked list of projects to the state committee in September. So, and October at the latest, I'll just say, just in case.
A lot of work being done, boy, a lot of money. Excellent, thank you. Climate resilient, Jennifer and Tyler?
Tyler, if you want to go first, since you're on
Sure.
the screen.
Yep, I didn't even close it out this time. So quick CRF updates. Similar to Ag Non-Point, definitely some closeouts happening. So 5 active rounds. We have a total contract amount of about $17.5 million. 139 total contracts across that money. Pending contracts, 33 pending contracts valued at just under $8 million. Active contracts, there's 57 of those, valued at just over $6 million. Completed contracts, we've had 35 completed contracts, and that's valued at just over $2.2 million. Jennifer, I'm not, you can go into some of the pending stuff. Any questions on the data side?
Any amendments or anything, Jennifer?
Yes, absolutely. So I do have, we do have one contract that is active for round 6, so that's great news, and the others are working their way through the approval process. And so that is forthcoming. We do have one amendment for consideration. It is from Region 2 from Onondaga Soil and Water Conservation District for a Round 3 project. This was, they were requesting extension to complete a prescribed rotational grazing project. There was some complications securing the fencing, but are dedicated to completing this by the end of 2023.
Do we, any questions, comments, anyone? Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second? So moved. Moved in second, to go to voting. Dave? Aye. Erica?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Approved. Thank you very much. Anything else on CRF, Jennifer?
Thank you. I will just provide a quick update. Round 7 is open. Applications are due August 7th. The final Q&A will be posted today.
Getting a lot of questions this year. Good sign.
A lot of questions from businesses, farmers outside of the state, just a lot of interest all over the place about this program. So, yeah, busy. That's all I have, unless there are any questions.
Questions, anyone? If not, Scott, you want to introduce yourself?
Scott Pickbone, Region 3 AEA. I'm sorry to be late.
We're glad you're here.
Followed the detour. It took me on a huge circle.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is the Ag BMP. Ron?
Thanks, Dale. We're waiting for a presentation here. So at the April state committee meeting, we did a brief update on a kind of an ongoing project that we're working with New York State DEC with, which is specifically related to the state pollutant discharge elimination system general permit for stormwater discharges from construction activity. So a lot there. We won't get into all the nuances of that permit, but it does relate to construction on ag land, and both in the farmstead and out in the croplands. So we've got a MOU with DEC, so there's a bunch of us that kind of help them, mostly with some technical assistance, making sure that we can describe the projects and the type of practices that come through soil and water districts, whether it's technical planning or implementation, cost share programs, and specifically the NRCS conservation practice systems or the standards. So, we're helping with them, coordinating with them, and specifically the historical and existing permit references Table 2 of our Ag BMP Systems catalog. So really, our business here is routine. There's no new policy changes that we'd be asking for a vote for, but at the end you'll see that we are asking for a vote to take a look at this update and approve it, and that way our partners at DEC can take that and do a minor update to their permit, which is standard business for them at this point. You can go to the next slide. So just some background, we provide guidance and assistance to our farmers, our districts, and also kind of align our cost share programs under the systems approach, which encompasses a lot of different BMPs from NRCS. So we compile those together. The catalog also provides some other guidance areas of our work, and specifically one was this Table 2 relating some ag practices to the permit. You can go to the next one. So as some of the updates to the CAPO general permit and the 10-year cycle versus the 5-year cycle, just kind of pointed out that we would need a construction permit for some of those practices. They wouldn't be covered under the CAPO permit. Still standard business, no changes in the practices or the projects. It's just clarifying that. So that was kind of the crux of this activity, in coordination with us so that they could update some of their program materials. And then what we saw was we wanted to make sure that we were putting our best foot forward as far as having guidance or information that does not contradict information in that permit. So if there's any take-home message today, it's any construction activity on a farm really gets tied back to that foundational document, the existing permit. So if we can, take that home, as well as some of the other FAQs and guidance that DEC provides, they're really the authority on this. We have a very minor role coming to this. So they've been doing some trainings. We've been helping coordinate those. It's been at the Water Quality Symposium, also some other webinars we've been doing, and then you'll see that to make sure that we're all going forward and understand the permit, the requirements for farms, the implications for our cost share program. So this one's really important. Going forward, some of these projects, that they make sure they know what they're getting into, if they need coverage and of what type, and is there a plan going forward for stormwater pollution prevention plan, erosion and sediment control BMPs, is the engineering cost, design cost, inspection cost covered. We just want to make sure that folks are kind of refreshing and knowing what they're getting into for some of these requirements, these permit requirements. And the other thing is, so the guidance we provided was just tying it to some of the structural NRCS conservation practice standards that one may employ on a farm. So if you see access control or heavy use area protection, some of these things, and then you disturb over an acre of land, then you've got to start looking into what your requirements are as far as construction activity and permit requirements. You can go to the next slide. So here's a look. This is specifically what you would be voting on today, is that this will be inserted as Table 2 which is the list of those structural, possibly structural conservation practice standards that may be implemented on farm, and there's a brief description on the top that really highlights that threshold of if you're disturbing over an acre, then you need to look at those permit requirements. You can go to the next slide. So, as I mentioned before, going forward, make sure that you're talking with your regional DEC folks. Dave Gasper at DEC, also Sarah Latessa, they're really the ones that are, the authority on these that would make the final call, as well as others on their team. So we don't want to provide guidance or, advice on things that are contradictory to what they would give you. And we're going to continue to support them. We're going to continue to work with them. There's going to be a guidance summary document that's provided that really, it just kind of extracts some of the information from that permit that specifically relates to construction activities on agricultural property. So we're still working on what that looks like. The attorneys at DC will make sure that it's not contradicting the permit, and then this will come out to assist folks, farmers and designers, engineers and planners, some of the specific permit requirements. So, we'll take some questions at the end, but we can put this up if you guys feel comfortable with it, that our minor role in supporting this construction activity permit and the guidance in that table, to which DEC is kind of already approved. So this is kind of a formality. But we're not going to shut down any questions if you feel like you need some more information.
Any questions, anyone? Motion to approve the Ag BMP catalog update, please.
So moved.
Moved, seconded?
Second.
Moved and seconded, go to voting. Dave?
Yep.
Erica?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Approved. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you. And the last slide is just for anyone on the call to reach out to us. Here's our regions, and we can provide a little assistance here and there. So we just wanted to share that.
Excellent. Very good. Excellent. Next on our agenda is Greg with the AEM base program.
And 1 second. Use it. Right, so I don't have to share, right? You don't have to share, just share through. Thank you. That's okay. I've at least memorized the lower right-hand corner of the content there, so should be able to power through there. Great, well, thank you Albany and thank you Syracuse. This is an informational presentation of our state committee proposals for what the AIM-based program Round 18 could look like. And it's based on us staff throughout the regions, other staff on the state committee, phone calls, everything. We really try to be diligent about collecting feedback while AIM's in play. And then thinking about how that might be used to update the next round. And then we're currently kind of on a tour of rolling out this draft version with soil and water districts, starting at the TAC a couple weeks ago, and then the regional manager meetings that the regional coordinators have set up that are going really well. One more to go up in northern New York tomorrow. And then here at the State Soil and Water Conservation Committee meeting, and getting feedback, seeing how it would work within our constraints of putting together a program and the opportunities with the goals of advancing AIM across all districts, and then coming with a final draft potentially for the July State Committee meeting to consider approval of. So that's kind of the timeline of things. and the context for the discussion here today. Apologies, I know there's a number of people here that have seen a bit of this before, so maybe I'll try to be a little more brief than the first time rolled out. So this is still in the context for AIM 18 of what we advanced starting in AIM 16 with 2 non-competitive tracks to advance conservation practice adoption in farms across the state. The first track, of course, is the longest running one. That's what started the AIM-based program in 2005 or so with a non-competitive technical assistance track to help districts work with farmers through the AIM tiers and other support and partnership activities that are allowed. And then in 2016 started a new track, Tier 4 Cost Share Track Fund to help implement practice systems that prioritized and bubbled up from Tier 3 or equivalent planning activities locally. Right? So if you're I should back up a little bit. So there's a draft marked up AIM 18 program and contract policy, which describes the program that is out among the districts, and we've been describing it at the managers' meetings, and it's been shared with the voting members here. So that'll be a part of the minutes. You can see that current iteration, and this slide set is just a summary of that. So encourage everybody to take a look at the actual words in the program policy, and you'll see the differences between what we're proposing here in 18 relative to AIM 17. But as a basic framework in your mind, the structure is very similar to 16 and 17 that we're proposing for 18. And we'll highlight some key differences that are essentially aimed at building capacity. So same platform, just more funding. A little bit of history here on what districts have done with AIM base. The blue bars down at the bottom are the number of districts that have participated in the AIM base program since its inception. Note that AIM, was developed and operated in the mid '90s, and then became part of state law in 2000. So it was still in play from a technical standpoint, but then this non-competitive funding program started to support that work in 2005. And we run around between 50 and 54 districts. Currently we're at 52, and thanks to regional coordinator work, I think we're on track to get at least 53 and maybe 54 with fingers crossed here. Funding-wise, the orange bar there is the total requested by districts over time. So that was moving around, between, if you tallied it up across all the districts, around $3 million a year, and then realized quite close to that. We like the darker bar there is what they earned and were reimbursed for their work with farmers on the technical tiers over time. And then you can see a bump for year 16, which is the column that's the farthest on the right, when we increased the technical assistance track a little bit, but most notably folded in a whole new track to support BMP implementation with farmers. Right? So that's why the big jump there. And that had a tally of around $11 million when it was all said and done. What we're looking at with an expansion, I'll just mention it here and you'll see numbers again, from a statewide perspective, would be in the neighborhood of $20 million or so. And that'd be split across almost evenly between the technical assistance track fund and a tier 4 BMP implementation track. And so, what does that mean for the state committee and its interplay with ag non-port source? Sorry about that. We fund the AIM-based program through ag non-point source returns from prior rounds of projects that came in under budget or weren't able to be completed at that moment in time, as well as a split from each EPF's ag non-point source line. So in years past, we've come to the committee and asked generally around $4 million of a split to fuel that technical assistance track portion of AIM-based from ag non-point source. with an increase that you'll see a minute at the county scale, they'd be looking at about a $5.5 million request each year. It'll be a little lower than that because we calibrate it to what the districts actually request in their action plans. But that's kind of the magnitude, about an extra $1.5 million request from each ag non-point source budget line per year. Does that make sense? As we're well aware of in the annual report, last July in the AIM-based 16 completion report and every CRF and Ag non-point source report, districts do a lot with these funds and this work, and that's just a quick updated version as of AIM-16 in 2021 of what districts continue to accomplish in working with farms substantially through the tiers. And if you pair that with what NRCS does and similar planning and implementation, and look at farms that maybe have a major commercial component to their enterprise, we estimate that's about half of those farms in the state that are engaged with AIM or NRCS. So significant work. That's a screenshot to show the contract and program policy for AIM-18 in its draft form. That's out to the voting members. Will be a part of the minutes here. And it's been out to the districts as of June 1st. So if anybody's looking for that and doesn't want to dig that out, please just reach out to me or one of the regional coordinators, and we'll shuffle it back up. All right, so some highlights from that document. The first is, always realizing through number of discussion lines the need to increase capacity and show that steady commitment to that, so that district managers and their boards can commit to hiring new people and maintaining them without insecurities that might be here today, gone tomorrow, as well as feedback that came clearly through these soil and water, the state committee's strategic plan survey that the districts completed. Hey, can we do a little more for the technical assistance track? So we scratched our heads and looked at budgets and are in a good position. And then we said, well, what can we calibrate this to that's maybe relevant for the market in the pool of people that we would be looking to attract to hire to a district or maintain at a district. And it seemed like a good calibration point there are the federal government salary lines that, for instance, our NRCS and FSA partners use. And so you can see there's three funding options, A, B, and C, and they represent, A represents an entry level and B, C represent higher funding caps based on a district cultivating or hiring, or a little of both, a planner or a staff person who has technical skills and credentials to help them do their job better. They bring more value to the farms that they're working with, and earn a higher salary as a result. So we took our three levels and looked at the budget we had to work with, and then aligned them with option A is roughly aligned with a government salary level 9 plus a 35% benefit. So it's GS9 times 1.35 essentially leads to that 90,000 per year that's on the screen. It's a 2-year program, so you double it, that's 180, and that's what forms that cap for option A. And the same logic follows for B and C, and you can see the increases on the screen there. For option B, that's our highest, that's a legacy, that's the reason why it's out of order. That's calibrated to a federal pay scale GS12 plus 35 benefits. And then option C is that interim step, so incentivizing that next step with conservation credentials, and that's calibrated to a GS11 plus 35%. So that's the rhyme and reason there. And then these happen to just be the average of that 10-step process that's at each GS level times 35. That's the math behind it. Here's more of a thing to think about and discuss now or call later is we would also like to recognize, and this is based on good district feedback, and us is just looking for, relevant credentials. Are there other credentials than what we've currently offered in AIM 16 and 17 that would achieve the goal of expanding capacity, helping a district do more with more farmers per unit time, beyond the classics AIM certified planner for option B, or CCA or NRCS certified planner for option C. And this is the current list that we've come up with. The expansions for option B would be a Society of American Foresters certified forester, a person holding an engineer in trading credential in New York State, and then a professional engineer license in New York State for option B. So if there's others that would serve the need and be helpful in that highest level, very significant achievement category, please let us know. In the option C category, it was certified crop advisor and NRCS certified planner. That's staying the same as the last few rounds, and we're considering adding an NRCS technical service provider for at least one of the planning components that we have in the state, and those are roughly nutrient management, comprehensive nutrient management, grazing, forestry, I think are the main ones that they have on the books. And there's a couple of district staff that are currently in that category right now. So that's what we're considering as an addition. And I think thanks to Pat and Ryan, keeping our eyes peeled for another interim SAF foresters certification, maybe coming out in 2025 or so. So maybe that could be for option C for round 19 or something like that. So let's all keep an eye on certifications that are relevant and purposeful and would help this. So just a quick note on the bottom there, Ben Lussman did a great job of summarizing everybody's annual report submitted, and we use that to calculate our senior tech rate, and that's up from $48 to $51 for AIM 18. I should pause there. Any questions on the technical assistance side and Ryan's reasons, logic?
I got a quick question. On the option B, the 130,000, if you divide that back by 2,080 possible work hours in a year, that doesn't end up equaling that state rate there at $51 an hour. So how do you earn that? You'd have to have more than one person working on it, and how you'd have to earn 130?
Yeah. So this is right. There's help me out. Right, regional quarters. Right. You are the experts of your budgets. Right, and this is a frame of in the vision of one person. It's definitely not in the vision with our current budget of 2 new people out of this, right, or 2 existing people, right. So you look at the mix of your portfolio of funds of grants and local and AIM base and things like that, and figure out how to maintain staff, build staff, right? If that makes sense.
I think on average, more than one person works off of that money at an hourly rate.
Yeah.
Ideally, you might have a technician and a mentor sort of helping somebody that has more experience. And it's also including the $10,000 in soil health testing too.
Yeah.
So don't forget about that.
Yep. Nope. I think it's great. Yep.
Good question. Switching over then to the Tier 4 cost share track funds. Also listening, interested in doing more work with this line of funds relative to the $100,000 cap that we've had for the last 2 years. And also interested in some more flexibility with that. And so we're proposing a $200,000 per district cap for work on at least one farm project. Right? Certainly, the same constant points of emphasis that have been with the AIM-based program since the beginning continue here. Right? So the AIM-based Tier 4 cost share track was really intended to be a niche and complementary to Ag Non-Point Source and CRF, and not a replacement for it. So, what's kind of a classic scenario that drove this back in 2018 or so when we were brainstorming about it is, You know, is there something where there are good projects emerging from tier 4, tier 3 plans? They'd be good for the farm, they'd be good for the environment, but maybe there's some aspects of it that just would not make it as competitive in one of our state-ranked programs like Ag Non-Point Source and CRF. Maybe it allows us a little more flexibility to work with a farm that's just partnering with us for the first time, and some nimbleness and quickness to get in, do a small project, turn around, establish a relationship, and then ask the question, okay, cool, that went pretty well, right? What's next? So it is most definitely still in that category, and you know that we strongly encourage folks to use that. And you showed that, right? District showed that in AIM 16, where there were almost 160 completed projects, and the average was about $25,000 in state share, and it was a wide swath of farm types. So that's great. It's exactly what we're looking for here. So, right, the small bullets there continue to be extremely important for the success of this. And I'll focus in on the bottom two there. This is not state ranked. It's always been decided upon by district staff and then ultimately their board, right, with a resolution of what projects are going forward. So continuing to hone and think about the process by which projects are prioritized and then selected for funding is really important, especially as funding levels go up, right? And we have a few examples of you know, local competitive programs, local ranking rubrics, whatnot on the AIM 17 SharePoint folder, and I would love more. Just if districts have, even if they're in draft form, and would share them with other districts, you know, reach out to me or your regional coordinator, and we'll put them up there, and other people can look at it too. Of course, before we can have projects to choose from, right? Every farmer needs to know about us. So, you know, continuing to set goals of, hey, being a part of every farmer's community. Does every farmer know what a district does and the services that are provided, and how to get a hold of you and take that first step, which is the beauty of AIM, of those you know, smart folks who crafted it back in the mid-90s. So it really starts with a nice, simple starting point, meet people where they're at, and then you know, very simply move from there. So please continue on the outreach and engagement and reaching out, keeping eyes peeled for new farmers, new farmer groups that are meeting. That, you know, you might invite yourself to a meeting and just do a 15-minute bit on what the district does and all the other outreach mechanisms that are there. Any questions on the Tier 4 cost share track? I just have a couple important but slightly separate topics, and then I'll bring this home, Deb. Albany?
All good.
Okay. Couple noteworthy, but decouple things, I guess. We now have a clear description of the resource concerns that, you know, can be pursued and addressed through AIM-based work, planning, implementation, and whatnot, follow-up. And that matches the change to the 2008 in the 2008 AIM law, where it's covering, you know, water quality, but also soil health and greenhouse gas mitigation and climate preparedness and such. Right? So it says that better than it ever has. We expanded the list of flat rate soil tests. And currently in the proposal, you'll see, in addition to soil nutrient, soil health, and manure compost nutrient, we're suggesting an addition of a few soil heavy metal packages. And the criteria here are that there's a standard method we could point to, if not just a lab that does it. That happens to be the case with heavy metals. It's University of Maine. That comes with a rate that we can hang our hat on, and then therefore make a flat rate that won't short a district. And it needs to be coupled and supportive of your work in making a tier 3 plan for a farm, right? So if it passes those tests, we're game. If it's more complex than that, it kind of fails the simplicity test, and you know, there's other ways to fund those things. The farmer can pay for that analysis. The district expert can go out and save them some labor and cost by actually taking the sample. You know, there's options, right? There's other local funds you might consider using, right? So as a result, you'll read it and you won't see, for instance, like testing for PFOAs yet, right? Because there's so many different tests and they're very expensive, and we don't quite know how to make that a flat rate. So. But please zoom in on that, and if there's thoughts or ideas that meet those criteria, we're game. The final point here is that you may remember for CRF round 7, Jennifer and company worked to further update the description around what's an eligible farm, and so that was approved through the state committee and through our attorneys, and is out in operation right now, and so we're using that for AIM 18 as well. And it essentially has the Ag and Markets Law definition for a farm operation. But then it goes on to say, as sort of like a supplement, it doesn't change the definition, but as a supplement of, hey, this can also take shape in an urban or suburban environment as well. So just remember, you can have a commercial farm in those environments too. So you'll find that exact same language in the draft for AIM 18 too. Which is not a change from AIM 17, I think, is when we plugged in the actual farm operation definition. But it says it clear that here's the wide swath of farms that we can work with. This is just proposed AIM 18 and one view shed here. We've talked about it. I can skip over and just show you the timeline. Good discussions at managers' meetings. Presentation here today. One more managers' meeting to go, and we're taking lots of notes. And we'll have a next draft in the works after that. And if things seem like logic is achieved and we're in a good spot, we'll bring it to the state committee for consideration for approval at the July meeting. And then it takes a familiar program schedule, as we've experienced in 17 at least. November 1st for the action plan, and that's your goals for technical assistance. And then the Tier 4 cost share track is going to remain very simple as in the past, and there's a reason for that. So just be one line and your total estimated budget based on who you've got in the pipeline with plans that are drafted, right? And conversations and who's ready to go on a 2-year program and all that stuff, right? So technical plans as well as farmer desire matched up, right? And then program starts on January 1st, and then we're continuing that 6-month breather until May 1st of the first program year to submit the actual details of those Tier 4 cost share track projects. So you get a little more time to hone that and their budgets with the farm, and hopefully with the idea that it's good and ready to roll, and we can minimize for everybody's efficiency and sake, right, amendments. But you will also find there's still a pretty simple amendment process that you've become familiar with from AIM 16 as well. Sorry, Albany, I've been talking a lot to the room and not to that room lately. I apologize. I will leave it at that, yeah.
Questions for Greg, anyone? Comments? Awful quiet in Albany today.
Well, he wasn't talking to us.
Well, that's about the funding, I guess.
I guess you're right.
All good.
Yeah, thanks, Greg, very much.
Shoulder, right? Yes, Ryan.
We projected to be able to have enough money for $200,000 for the Tier 4.
Yes.
Do we have a crystal ball into how far that takes us into the future? Do we know how much, is that looking similar to subsequent AEM contract years in the future?
Yeah, we run it out a few rounds, and so the assumptions are similar volume of returns and similar EPF funding for ag non-point source. Right, so if those change drastically, then it changes. But that's a pretty, given the track record, that's a pretty consistent and conservative approach. And then certainly, there are some other things at play that are maybe unique to just the next period of time with the Bond Act and whatnot. So, but yeah, no, that's a good one that, right, we get together and Bethany kicks that off on helping us, crystal ball out so that we're consistent and we're not volatile. If we feel like we're going to get to the edge and be volatile, we need to pull back the funding amounts. And for instance, that's why I'll admit before I reach out to Bethany or talk to even our own staff about this, I do some what ifs with a spreadsheet based on prior performance, and one of them was 2x for staff. What if could we do any base that was sort of designed around 2 new staff? And we don't have enough money for that. So, yeah.
Great.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, everybody.
Next is the GIS storyboard. Tyler?
All right, 1 second while we get switched back around. Okay, excellent. So thanks, Dale. Hopefully everybody can see the screen that we can see. So the last couple of state committee meetings, I've been stressing about the SWCC storyboard and the district storyboard and the projects that districts have been completing, and we want to showcase those. And I think I finally have gotten it to a point where we want to showcase it and kind of just show everybody where we're at, and we're actually going to go through a couple projects examples in both here and Albany today, as we've kind of been able to test it out and feel it out a little bit. So a little bit of background. This is not new. It has been on our website. Everybody can access it. The public can see it. But really, it was outdated. The software just wasn't supported anymore. So it kind of took me a little bit longer to get it updated and squared away than I thought. So I'm starting out right here on our website. I have updated the link. They kind of re-embedded it into our software, and once you click on it, nothing happens. So far, so good.
I had my foot on the table.
And so it takes you to the front page, essentially, is what I'm calling it. And this is actually just district location and contact information. So since we're in Onondaga today, I'm going to pick on them. So hopefully, when we zoom in, if I'm general public or anybody and I want to find contact information for a certain district, you can basically zoom in to your county or said county, and all of their information is hopefully up to date here and viewable. PJ has pointed out that some of the links to their websites might be broken, and that's just a formatting thing that I kind of have to take care of. But if there are any districts on the line today, this is my little bit of a ploy to contact me if anything is wacky or wrong. I can go through our directory and kind of update it that way too, but I know some contact information does change. So, and again, this is a little bit of a repeat. I know we do have the directory on SharePoint, so that's available too, but this, I guess, is just a breakdown of who we are, some information about us, our programs with some links, and really just kind of summarizing what we do. So that's kind of the main page for district contact stuff, but then we want to migrate kind of over to the projects, which hopefully, okay, cool. So I was a little bit worried about formatting, I'm not going to lie. I've spent probably the last week, a couple days out of it at least, just trying to get different browser widths to format properly when they're on different screens. So I was kind of sweating this morning that when it went up on a bigger screen, it would hopefully follow the format of the computer. But anyways, so this is kind of the main storyboard. So this is where districts are able to submit projects to us or to myself, and I can kind of upload them. And this is exact pinpoint location or within reason. And basically, I'm going to choose on the person sitting next to me here. So
better be good.
Better be good. Oh, perfect. I picked the right one too. So this is kind of just a very brief highlight of what a project is or what the district did. It has some pictures, the project name, associated programs, so folks, partners, whoever we partnered with to do that project, the main district, because there could be several districts that are working on the same project sometimes. A brief description of the project, sometimes a couple extra photos are in there as well. And some other links sometimes. So I know Caitlin, when we did one with hers, she actually had a video that was connected to it. I believe Jefferson did as well. So I actually tried to put the link to that video so people could actually watch the video as well. So there's only a couple of new projects that I put on the storyboard. Again, this was already existing, so I'm kind of just building it as we go and adding and updating. So as districts are going through this, or if they think of a good project, any of our coordinators or regional folks that are working with them, and you think of a good one at closeout that might be a good highlight, and the permissions are there to do it, feel free to spread the word there. Or if a district is online and there's a project that you don't really want on there anymore, please let me know. We can take it down, we can add new. This is meant to be flexible for sure. So actually that was a good segue. Good job, Ty. I want to move in how we get that information for projects. And essentially, I've been kind of brainstorming different ideas on how am I gonna get this information and the best way to get it uploaded. So I created a Microsoft Forms, kind of a collection form, and I'm kind of in the process of troubleshooting it a little bit right now, but this is something that I'm going to release probably in the next couple of weeks for districts to be able to essentially submit information about a project to the committee, and I'll be able to take it from there and get those uploaded. So basic information, collecting the coordinates, the project name, contact information in case I have to troubleshoot some stuff, the partners, the project description, and most importantly, those photos. That's the piece that I think that really sells this the most, honestly. And unfortunately, that's where my biggest hang-up is right now, because being a State Department, there's odd permissions that I'm working through right now and troubleshooting. So I can't request uploads outside of our organization. So stay tuned. But hopefully we'll get to a point where districts will be able to submit that very fluidly, and it won't take me long to get those migrated and updated into the storyboard. I guess that was a lot. So I'm going to pause real quick and take any questions, or if you want to explore some before we dive into a couple examples.
Tyler, I'll just say thank you very much for taking on this initiative to update this storyboard and bring it back to life. This last week, I spent some time along with others going to regional managers meetings, and one of the main, something that kind of came out of each one of those meetings was that we need to help districts get the word out about who they are, what they do, what services they can provide to their counties. And I think this is just one tool that districts can use to do that. So I really appreciate you taking this on. And I think once we get that form worked out, we should maybe send an updated link and everything out to districts so that they know that the new storyboard is up on the website, so that they can provide that to whomever they would like to provide it to. And then we can, get that form out there as well to hopefully generate more responses and more projects that we can highlight through this tool.
Perfect. Thanks, Bethany. I will note, I know there are a couple districts out there that actually have probably a similar system or interactive map for their own county, and I know there's others that actually want to develop that. And so if anybody has questions, I've worked through GIS experience enough now in some of our IT folks where I think I have figured out the quirkiness. So if there's questions, please feel free to reach out. So, any other questions, comments?
Tyler, this is Caitlin. The map looks fantastic. What platform are you using? Is this ArcView story maps?
So this is an ArcGIS software. It's actually called Experience. It's an experience map. Unfortunately, I don't have a better description about it, but because there are a couple different formats that you can use in Arc Online, and so this was kind of recommended to me. So it's experience mapping.
Thank you. Looks great.
Thanks. Okay. Well, Caitlin, I guess while you're there, do you want to? No, we'll do that. Yeah, go ahead, Caitlin. We'll have you.
So, just a little bit of background. In Tyler's efforts to update the GIS storyboard, we did receive a couple of updated projects from Hamilton County and Jefferson County Soil and Water. So we thought it'd be a really great addition to this meeting today to highlight those projects. So thank you, Caitlin and Pat and others from Jefferson County for joining. Caitlin, I have this saved on a computer.
I made some updates. I'm so sorry.
No worries. So.
Thank you, Bethany.
Bear with us, everyone. Oops. It should.
Just so.
I'm getting there.
Sorry if I messed up the order.
Actually, just do the, if you go back, thank you. Yes, the June 20th one.
Yeah, no problem. So just a quick check, folks in Syracuse, are you seeing the Warner Brook Stream Bank Stabilization Project?
In the file explorer, not the actual PowerPoint.
Okay. Let's work on that. Do you have to share it again? Did it should come up. There it is. Yep.
There you
We hope this is the right.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. I want to thank Bethany very much for the invitation to share a little bit about a project that is 2 years in the making. This is our Warner Brook Stream Bank Stabilization Project. So where in the world are we? Warner Brook is a stream in the town of Arietta in southern Hamilton County, and you can see the dot there on the map. The picture on the left shows our headwaters. It is classified as a CT stream, so it's quite important, and it's a trout stream, and it's good for recreation as well. So again, the C is for fisheries, the T is for trout, meaning cold water, again, really important for our ecology. Warner Brook has been eroding for years, and the 2019 Halloween storm blew through and really put the entire ecosystem out of whack. So we've seen a lot of erosion. As you can see in the photo on the right, lots of deposition. At one time, the stream velocity was great enough to carry all of those boulders across the road and deposit them right above Piseco Lake.
And is that encroaching on that road as well?
Yes, yes, I think I have a photo that shows that too. All of the sediment eventually filtered out as that velocity decreased when it entered Piseco Lake and a delta was formed. So lots of sedimentation filling in macroinvertebrate habitat. And it really made the stream, this mountain stream that should have a lot of riffles, straight and steep, again, contributing to that erosive state. There are no steps or pools that allow for fish, especially those trout, to migrate upstream to spawn. Here's what happened. So this is what we're dealing with. The road is like molten lava, super, super bumpy. The guardrail is in the stream. The culvert was demolished and all of those rocks deposited. We have highly erosive banks. Trees were falling into Warner Brook. Really nasty situation that was caused by the Halloween storm of 2019. Our district technician, Lenny Crute, rallied up the partners and he was able to really put some TLC into Warner Brook. Step one, large boulders were placed in the stream, and this is creating a step pool system for the trout to migrate up. You can see here, before the Halloween storm caused a waterfall, and the fish could not make that jump into the culvert. So with these large boulders, Lenny is creating this step pool system to allow for fish passage through that culvert. And I know that people tend to freak out when they see excavators in streams, but this is really the best management practice for getting the work done. You get a lot of bang for your buck for having something like an excavator in that stream to do the work. Okay, stabilization step 2. Lenny installed a filter fabric to increase the level of the stream so that it flows over the rock instead of under the rock. And this was a method that the United States Fish and Wildlife Service has used, and it was piloted for the first time here in Hamilton County. So Lenny was wicked excited to pilot this new technology. And so you can see the black filter fabric are being installed under the rocks to maintain that high level of stream. And again, it's preventing the subsurface flow, keeping the water above the rock instead of filtering below. And again, enhancing fish passage, of course. So, stabilization step 3. Lenny installed a cross vein, and the cross vein is this lower bunch of rocks here. The cross vein is directing the flow, the energy of the stream away from the sides to the center where less erosion occurs. So this is an example of natural channel design, again, taking United States Fish and Wildlife practices and installing them here on Warner Brook. It also helps with grade control, slowing down the velocity of water. Partnerships make it possible, and leave it to Lenny to get this $70,000 project done on a shoestring. For partnerships, the Hamilton County Department of Public Works hauled 160 tons of rock, and they also provided an excavator and an operator. The New York State Department of Transportation also provided rock. So the rock again was used to create that cross vein and the step pool system. The town of Arietta Highway Department provided a second excavator. One's always better than two. And the United States Fish and Wildlife Service approved the project design. Carl Schwartz and Lenny go back decades, and Carl has been instrumental in a lot of our stream restoration projects. Carl came on the site, checked out Lenny's plans, gave that stamp of approval, so we had good support at the federal level for this project. Hamilton County Soil and Water purchased that filter fabric. That cost $500. Lenny worked with the Department of Environmental Conservation, the Adirondack Park Agency, and the Army Corps of Engineers on permits. And Lenny also designed and oversaw installation. Education is essential, and we invited the Lake Pleasant Central School 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders to learn about our project. We talked about natural channel design, we talked about trout habitat, we talked about culvert passage, and then they took all that knowledge from the classroom into the field, and we did a really fantastic day of tree planting to help further stabilize those banks. So again, here are some more pictures. Lenny on the right and our new technician, Katie Witkovitz, on the left in that upper photograph. They were on site for the day too. And the students had an incredible learning experience. The teachers were happy to get the students out in the field. And our landowners were happy because a lot of trees were planted that will help hold that soil in place. Warner Brook is flanked by private property on both sides, so we were able to work with those landowners. And there's Lenny talking a little bit about natural channel design, and you can see the confluence of Warner Brook and beautiful Piseco Lake in that upper photograph. These are the tree species that we used, of course, trees that love wet feet. Streamco willow especially is epic for this restoration project. The Streamco willow is very resilient. It bends with a lot of water moving through that system. So even in flood conditions, the Streamco willow should maintain its presence here. It's not going to wash away. So again, it has a stem that really bends and moves with the water. It's also a super fast grower. So again, Lenny estimated that with the cost of the excavator and the rock and the time, the price tag for this project would have been about $70,000. And well, Lenny was able to get this on the ground for $500, excluding our staff time. So a really incredible cost savings. He got all the rock for free, the excavators partnered with us. Really great success story.
I thought that was a misprint the first time I saw that. I was editing it right, and I was like, no, that's not right. Yes. Wonderful job.
Yes. We have a couple more slides here. So just to recap, the boulders that Lenny and our operators installed are shortening the distance of the waterfall. That's encouraging fish passage. And that step pool system is creating incredible aquatic habitat. All of these items are slowing the velocity and the energy of the stream, and it's returning Warner Brook to a less erosive, more stable state. Here are some before and after pictures. The photo on the right that Lenny took during the wintertime, he was so excited to see this. All of that white water is energy dissipating. So the step pool system, the filter fabric, The cross vein are all doing their job. This is during spring runoff, probably mid-March. And again, all of those bubbles, that white water is that energy of the stream dissipating. Roll that beautiful stream footage. Again, you can really, on the left-hand side, see that step pool system. The fish jump right up through that culvert, get upstream to spawn. And wrapping up, I want to share a quote from you, from Catherine Weil, who's one of the property owners. She owns a house on the right-hand side of Warner Brook, and she's also a natural resources scientist in the United States Fish and Wildlife. And to quote her, "Fishing brought my family to Piseco Lake 80 years ago, and I remember vividly how concerned my grandfather was when the fish populations were low. I became the wildlife scientist I am now, in many ways, because of him." So, seeing Warner Brook function for the first time in my lifetime in such a way that we saw common mergansers and young trout was beyond amazing. A dream come true. What questions do you have?
What's the life expectancy of that filter fabric?
Yes, Jennifer inquired what is the life expectancy of the filter fabric. Lenny said a couple of decades.
Okay.
So he probably won't have to replace it by the time he retires. But it's specifically formulated so it's not breaking down, so it's not polluting the stream. It's tough stuff. So at least a couple of decades. And that was one of the reasons why he selected that, because again, within the next 15 years, he's not going to have to worry about it.
Was there much damage upstream above the road that he had?
The question was there much damage upstream of the culvert that we had to address? All of that was addressed downstream. The upper portions of the stream were okay.
Caitlin, this is Paul. Was the I couldn't really tell if the culvert was replaced in the
No,
photos.
the culvert was not replaced. It was just sort of banged back into shape.
Okay. So, was it determined that the culvert could handle the stream flow in an event like
Yes.
Halloween?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. And also funding was a major concern as well. We're hoping to perhaps get a culvert restoration grant and really address some of our problem culverts, especially dealing with the larger magnitude storms that we're seeing.
Since the damage was below the culvert, is there any thought that culverts created that velocity to do the damage below the culvert versus above the culvert?
The question was, because the damage was below the culvert,
Was the culvert the culprit for the damage?
was the culprit for the damage? It was the headwaters, the magnitude of the headwaters caused during the Halloween storm flowing down an already erosive stream. A stream that was straight and that was steep. So, and probably the culvert did contribute to it, but the initial cause was the magnitude of water that was flowing down the mountainside in a steep, already erosive stream.
So really that culvert should be able to handle it in normal conditions, but because of all that extra erosion and rock, that's what really, yeah, okay.
Correct.
Fantastic project.
Yeah, great project.
Oh, thank you. And here's our mission. I want to thank our indefatigable team members, Lenny, Katie, and Marge, who are always on board for our projects. our board of directors, and of course, our partners. I gotta give a shout out to Brian Cunningham as well. Thank you, folks.
Thank you very much, Amy.
Awesome. Thank you, Caitlin, for going through that. We are going to switch gears.
It all good? You're good? All right. All right, a few things to start is I need to thank my assistant, Rhonda Redder, because she's the one that sent everything to Tyler and let me know about it. And I really don't like doing presentations, but Bethany emailed me, and when I saw, I don't even know Bethany other than I see her right now, but I saw executive director beside her name, so I said, I better do this one.
You'll meet her tomorrow.
Yep. Even though a year and 6 months, 11 days I won't be here, but I figured I had to do it. And so what I followed up with is I let Rhonda go ahead and do the PowerPoint, seeing how she got me into this. So hopefully I can fumble through it. How do I get through it? Just that, got it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So a couple of years ago, because of COVID, slowing everything down with our Envirothon, and we had a bunch of turnover in high school teachers, that program kind of fell by the wayside. So we were trying to figure out a way how we could get out into the schools and do some education and outreach. On top of that, we're the stormwater coordinators for the Jefferson County Stormwater Coalition. So Ron and I just kind of brainstormed a program. We knew we wanted to talk about stormwater. We thought with the CLCPA and everything that stormwater districts are doing with that, we should talk about carbon. And then because I'm a certified forester, I had to add reforestation in there just because I had to. So we came up with SWCare, Stormwater Carbon Awareness, Reforestation Education for Students. And the next move was to figure out what grade level. And it was pretty simple because the lady in the blue shirt in the top left is my wife. She's a 33-year retired veteran 4th grade school teacher. And the 4th grade level, it changed this year for the state, but the 4th grade at the end of the year would take their science exam. So Julie knew that these students would understand photosynthesis, they would understand the water cycle, but it was interesting that they really, she was quite confident they'd pick up the carbon, which they did very easily. So I don't want to take any credit for this. She's the mastermind of the classroom part of it. We did have Sarah Trick work with her on building the PowerPoint, but Julie's the one that came up with the classroom teaching. We also had some connections why it started in Mansville. We started with 2 classrooms in South Jefferson's Mansville Elementary School because maybe my wife taught there and we knew who the teachers were. So we gave it a try year 1, so that was 2 years ago. It was roughly 60 minutes of classroom presentation by a teacher. Now Sarah does it on our staff, and then we go to the field for the next 30 minutes. So we launched it in Mansville, 2 classrooms, and then this year it worked so well, we expanded it to 5 elementary schools, 15 different classes in the Black River watershed, and reached out to 300 students versus, I think we had 40 year 1. So we're hitting that minimum control measure 1 for education and outreach for stormwater. The class, like I said, is about 60 minutes. We do science review of photosynthesis in the water cycle, which again, the students were getting ready for their 4th grade science exam. Now it's in the 5th grade. So that was all review for them. We then went into carbon. They picked it up immediately. What's interesting, we even had teachers say they learned something. It's just because they hadn't thought it through. I mean, obviously the kids picked up immediately that trees and plants sequester carbon and give off oxygen, but they never think about where that carbon goes. So Julie put the formula right up on the board and explained it. Now they're not chemists or scientists that are going to go out and use it tomorrow, but they understand where that carbon goes is being sequestered by that tree, how it's stored, turned into glucose, and where that formula has, where it's used. We talked about greenhouse gases, we talked about repairing forest buffers, we talked about stormwater, and we talked about reforestation and afforestation. So that takes about 60 minutes. We've got it so we can break that down to about 45 minutes now, narrow down PowerPoint presentation a little bit. We went to each of the schools prior to this, and it's pretty simple to find stormwater catch basins and outfalls on any of these properties. So we already knew where they were, and we could talk to them about, you know, the pavement, the impervious areas. And we would go outside for 30 minutes, go to these stormwater catch basins, go to the outfalls, which this one had a really good outfall. If you look at the bottom right-hand picture where I'm standing, that's the outfall off the driveway just before the forested buffer. In the picture to the left, behind that is a wetland, so they could really grasp exactly what was going on with the stormwater. And then under that entire area is the Tug Hill Aquifer. So they picked that up really well. And some of the schools, Black River was awesome. They had just done 2 bioretention ponds around their parking lot. So different schools had some great opportunities to show the kids what was actually out there. Of course, we've got to do tree planting if you're a forester. So this coincided with our annual tree sale we do at the end of April. So we saved out 1,500 trees and gave each kid 5 trees to take home. But we went over tree planting on site, actually planted trees for each of the classes so they would learn, you know, how to avoid the J root and make sure that it was packed in so we didn't have any air pockets, and the importance of watering them, and the importance of site location. So when they get home, to ask their parents for some help, because if they just go out and plant them, Dad's going to mow them the next day because they ain't going to live there. So, you know, we accomplished a couple things. Again, we were able to check off a stormwater control measure box that we're doing education and outreach for our Stormwater Coalition. And the kids left. I mean, they're really excited when they leave. They're confident they know how to plant trees. We sent them home with a goodie bag with some other information in there for their parents about what we do and what we're providing for services in the county. And a kind of the measurement, I'm not going to read these, but I think one of the best ways to measure did your points get across is these thank you letters they send back. Because if you do read them, I don't. Rhonda, she just loves this stuff, so she reads them all. If you read through them, you'll be really surprised at just how much they picked up in that day by their comments. So I was pretty confident it was a good success. My wife felt it was very successful. She just felt that 4th grade, you got to be careful and make sure the students are able to pick up what you're going to teach. But I'm going to talk about another project we did with 9th graders here in just a minute. But there's a whole level of excitement down in that 4th grade level that you start to lose as the students get a little bit older. So it worked really well. So we'll continue to expand it. This coming year, there's 2 or 3 other schools in that Black River area that are part of the Stormwater Coalition that we'll reach out to, and hopefully we can get into those 4th grade. So eventually we'll cover the entire Stormwater Coalition. So if anybody's got any questions on that one, then I'll jump to the other project.
Pat, just a comment. Talk about Soil and Water Conservation District outreach. This is awesome. I mean, you sent Soil and Water Conservation District information to basically possibly 300 families that you may never have talked to before. So I think outside of all the benefits of what you just did, that was awesome.
Yeah, that storyboard that Tyler's doing, I was just thinking about it with what Caitlin did and these projects. It is really important to get out to the public because there's a perception. Even I have board members that think we do nothing but ag, and we do way more in ag, and all districts do. So that's what's interesting is all these projects today really aren't ag focused. It's just this is what we do on top of agriculture. So yeah. All right, I'm gonna jump to this other one if I can make it work.
I like that it could be potentially some new employees there in the class kind of some years from now.
Yep. So again, the first one I got to give a lot of credit to my wife. It is really helpful when you have a teacher that's helpful in this. The second one, this was a partnership with Indian River School. I'm not gonna be the hero here. The bottom line is Andrea Inserta is a master 9th grade earth science teacher. And what she does is she takes her 9th graders and raises brook trout each year, then gets with the DEC and figures out where she can actually stock them. And in that process, she found this stream. A lot of these schools, at least up in our area, they're trying to, these things take the place of field trips. This was 10 minutes from their school. They could have walked, but they rode a bus over. And that, I should go back to that with the SW Cares, they never had to leave the school to get outside, but there were things they saw outside they didn't even realize. So it was almost like they were at a different location. But so Andrea called with this project, is in the process of finding a place to stock brook trout. She found a farm that had pastured their cows in this field you're looking at right here and used the stream for a water source. But the farmer on his own had already moved the cows out of that area a year or so prior, realizing he didn't want to do that anymore. He had a second water source and a different place to move them. And she asked them if they'd be interested in letting her class come out and create a riparian forest buffer, which would help the stream where she wants to stock the fish. So she called me and asked if we were interested. So we love to jump on these things. These are fun projects. So she contacted us. First thing we did, she'd already contacted the farmer. The farmer was 100% on board. So we went out, did a site visit, looked the site over. Jonathan and I came up with a planting plan. It was about an acre. We went with New York State regen standards for hardwood, which they're targeting 450 trees the acre, which is 10 by 10 spacing. We picked the species. Now, I wouldn't say these were all the best pick that we would have chose for this site. We based it off our tree sale, what we had left. We round to purchase 25,000 trees. We sold 18,500, and then we kept 1,500 for SW Cares, planted 500 here, and the other 4,000 we put on other projects across the county, including county reforestation land. The trees will be absolutely fine. I'm just saying that probably could have been better choices. River birch, sycamore, sugar maple, red oak, and black cherry. The black cherry and the sugar maple we would have planted on the upper area sites. We talked to the students about the natural buffer across the stream that you can see that is doing well holding the banks, and then the lack of buffer on this side of the stream where we're getting some pretty heavy erosion. Ideally, again, this was a last minute, I think she called me in January, so there wasn't, ideally you go out and you do the entire AEM process. This really needs some stream bank work, just like Caitlin had just done. We probably would do something like a Roskin design, which we've done before, put some root wads in and willow. We talked about going back and planting willow. We didn't have any in our tree sale, but that's something we should do there to help stabilize that bank. Because they put a bridge in, and when they put the bridge in the highway department, you can see it there, the water's pretty much directed right at that bank. So what we did is we went out on site and we took pink paint and we marked out the 10 by 10 spacing for every one of the trees, laid out our tree tubes, our tree stakes, had the trees sitting in the stream, so the roots were moist, because this was over 2 days and it was just a lot of logistics, because Andrea had to get the bus of kids over there. They were there for an hour. Each group was about 20 kids, so we figured, all right, we'll try to plant 80 trees per session, which is what we did. The kids paired up in groups of 2 to 3, and they were able to get 80 trees planted per class. So they get there, we would go through all the steps in planting a tree, show them exactly how to do it, break them up into teams of 2 and 3. Everything was laying on the ground. All they had to do was go dig holes, put the tree in, plant it, drive in the wooden oak stake, put the tree tube up, put the bird net on, and so they accomplished 80 trees per session in about an hour. They did really well. A real quick cost analysis. Thought we'd just put this together. Is it worked out to about $19 a tree, so $5,800 an acre. But what's really important here is if you look at that employee time, we had all 5 of our staff out there so we could work with each one of these groups and educate them while we're going along. You could really I could have taken 2 guys and we would have planted that easy in a day. So you can knock a couple thousand off that employee time. So it would have been $3,800 an acre, which is what you're gonna get with these, especially if you use a tree tube and a stake. Those tree tubes are $5 a piece, and then you got the stake. So that's about right for a riparian forest buffer. A little more if you're gonna do the education and outreach. Rhonda had a slide back there on that miracle tube. I haven't used them very much at all. Matter of fact, I had never used them until this year. Most of my regeneration work is in the forest, and I'm building slash walls or fences to keep the deer away and let Mother Nature go ahead and plant it. I have planted a lot of trees before, but this year we planted so many trees, I kind of was doing trials the entire time. We planted them by hand, we planted them with dibbles and hodads, we planted them with 3-point hitch planters that we have at work. We planted them with actually an auger on the front of our track skid steer. And what I found just myself, just this 1 year, is no matter what method I use to plant those trees, those seedlings all did pretty much the same. What was interesting is if you stick a tree tube over it, it's night and day, because I'd have a row of trees spaced at 6 foot and a tree tube every 3rd to 4th tree, and that tree and the tree tube dwarf the other 2 tree seedlings just in this short amount of growing time we've got this year. And I'm not talking from deer browsing, because it's nothing to do with deer browsing, it's just the size of the leaf. So it's pretty incredible. It's very expensive, but it is pretty incredible what those tree tubes do.
A greenhouse?
Yeah,
They're
they're making that perfect little microclimate, exactly. And if you look inside that tube, what's interesting is you get condensation, so there's moisture in there when there's no moisture outside. It takes that heavy wind driving, so it builds this little greenhouse microclimate, and the leaves are huge. And then you go out to a black walnut planting right in the same row. And if they're outside the tube, and it's the full leaf. It's not like it's been nibbled, but it's 1/10 the size. So I mean, thousands of trees. So it wasn't a couple. I was just wow. So it's just very cost prohibitive, because 1 acre riparian forest buffer, put the tree tubes. Now do a 20-acre reforestation project in the forest, and it's a lot of money. It's very hard to justify. You won't get an economic return doing that. We're not trying to get an economic return on this. So this project worked great because we also made that connection with this farmer. So they're already starting the AEM process as soon as our new planner gets going with us. It's one of the first farms we'll go out to, and we'll follow up and go through the entire AEM planning process. And they've got some other project areas that we can work on that farm. So it was great, and the thing, what she did, Andrea called Channel 7 News, so they were out there, so it did make the news that night. And I got scolded. I wore my sunglasses, but that's all right. When I interview it, so I feel more comfortable. So yeah, you see that? Yeah, that's all. So it went great. In what I was saying earlier, that age class. So I just found it way out of the 9th graders. They were a great class. They did great work. It's just there's a lot of them that just really aren't into it. In 4th grade, they all think they can save the world. So I really kind of looked back at that younger group and said, wow, you might really make a difference here with this younger group. So we'll keep doing SW Cares. Andrea does this every year, so we'll probably continue buffers up through there. We have a board member that lives 1 mile down the road with a dairy farm, so our birdie got after him there. He's got a stream running through it, so hopefully we can do some buffer work there. So that's what we did. So, we being Rhonda.
And he's telling you the truth.
Yep. Any questions?
Just a quick question, I guess. You mentioned that buffer was installed at a farm. Was there a lot of conversation and kind of work that you had to put in to get that farm on board, or were they just like, yes, let's do this project with the school, and super excited from the get-go?
Yeah, this particular farm, Bethany, was an awesome yes, let's go. I think there's the actual farm owner, an older lady. It's her grandson and granddaughter-in-law that actually run the farm now. And so Mrs. Dellis, she was 100% on board. And I think the daughter-in-law teaches or works or does something at the Indian River School. Not a teacher, I think she's an aide. She was, and they had little kids. They had 2 little babies they had with them out there because they were right there on site while we were playing it. And it was a piece of cake. So yeah, it doesn't always go like that. Matter of fact, I struggle to get any farms want to do a buffer, but not this one. This was a piece of cake, which was all that easy.
Are there any plans to go back with the now or will be 10th graders to check on those trees and see how they're growing along?
Yeah, I think she's going to do that. I also made it a point right there with all of her students to make sure you guys come back. You all live here. Come back in the next 5 years, 10 years, and watch the site and watch what happens. So I think she'll do both. I think she'll take her class out there and show them where we're going. We did go back in and herbicide a foot perimeter around each one of these trees, and obviously we'll watch it and monitor it. But yep, I think she'll be going back and we'll be doing more plantings along that same street.
I think that's really cool because, I can imagine, if it were me, I'd like to drive by in my adult life and be, hey, I planted that tree. I don't know. I think that'd be kind of cool.
Pat, this is Caitlin. What a fantastic project. Just integrating the students, getting the buffer on a farm, which like you said is very, very challenging. I have to give you kudos too for getting the press there. That is key. That is really fantastic that you had press coverage. Pat, can you speak to the number of students, both 4th and 9th grade, that you educated and plans for next year? Will you follow the same model or do you plan to expand grade levels for 2024?
Yep, no, so in total we had just under 300 4th graders and there was about 80 9th graders. So next year we will try to pick up, I believe there's General Brown School, so they have 1 elementary. I think that's the last elementary along the Black River. The only reason why I don't think we would expand beyond that right now is SW Cares, that took us an entire week because you're working around their schedules. You get to the school and you might do 4 classes, so that's an hour and a half. That's 6 hours, and let's face it, my wife's a teacher. They only work 7 hours a day, so I had to throw that in there. But so it's just hard to do more than 4 classes in a day, and it was 5 days, and I don't know if we would want to put. I guess if I had the capacity, I would try to expand it across the whole county, but right now we're going to focus on that Stormwater Coalition. As far as those 9th graders, what I thought was really cool would be ideal is if I could get the other 9th grade teachers in those same classes schools that I'm doing the SW Cares in, so that 4th grader, 5 years later when he's in 9th grade, now he's outside planting the riparian forest buffer, and just to see what kind of interest they have at that point, whether we got them more interested or less interested. So that's a lot of kids, 400 to 500, that's a lot of part-time,
Yeah, for sure. Fantastic, thank you very much.
Jennifer?
Hey Pat, how long do you keep the tree tubes on and are they reusable when you take them off?
Well, so you really want to keep them on until that tree comes up out of the top of it, and that way they're above deer browsing height. And as far as reusing them, you're going to have to slit them to get them off there, but I do know they work, and you can reuse them because a friend of mine, who's the cheapest person I know, went to one of our sites where the trees were very successful, and I told him, go ahead and take the tubes off, it's a lot of work. Well, he took them all off, and he took them home, and he planted seedlings in it, and that's what actually spurred me on to the idea this year, is I looked at those seedlings, and he knows about as much how to plant a tree as Greg does, and just team Greg. And his trees were all out of the top of the tube in 5 years. I just was like, wow, what'd you do, Greg? And it's that microclimate, because he didn't do anything. He planted them in a field, did no herbicide around the outside, so it's competing with vegetation. And it was just incredible how successful they were. So he's That project was probably, those tubes were probably 10 years old, then he pulled them and has another 5 years out of them. So you could, you're just gonna have to slit them. That's all. It's just gonna take you a lot of time. They're supposed to decompose. Sorry, Greg, I'm just having fun.
He gives it right.
Yeah, we can tell you don't like doing this at all, Pat, right?
Yeah.
Next meeting, he'll have a slide of all the trees he planted.
All right.
So, great. Just real quick wrap up. So maybe I failed to connect the dots a little bit, but it's just amazing. Like, it's really hard to fit all of that excellent project detailed work in a little tiny box on a map. And maybe that's why we have the contact information for districts. So if you have more questions about a project, reach out to them. Like, it's all of this great work that's happening across the state, and we're just trying to showcase more and more of these projects. And like Pat said, it doesn't have to be ag related. I mean, it's soil and water, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
great.
Yes. Thanks.
Yep.
Well done.
Bethany, anything else to cover before we go to the voting advisory reports?
Just, I want to say again how grateful I am to Caitlin and to Pat for coming and presenting on those projects today and sharing the diverse work that districts do out there. Thank you again so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. I will go to advisory reports.
I don't have a statewide extension sort of report, but just more on the local level. In cooperation with the New York State Agribusiness Association, we're having a 4-hour field day on August 23rd at DeMont Farms in Union Springs. I think we do have to limit to 100 people, but we're gonna showcase some things that have been done there at DeMont and some of the work on, or some of the innovations some of the neighboring farms have done around newer management and using their nutrients sustainably and for better environmental outcomes.
Can you repeat the date of that? Dan?
That's August 23rd.
Okay.
And Bethany, I'll send you the flyer or the announcement so that you can get it out to committee or other interested folks.
That would be great. Thank you so much.
Scott?
Yeah, over the past month, we had a meeting in Cayuga, some districts that have covers and flares under contract. You know, recognizing that I think something like 4% of our contracts account for about north of 75% of the reductions. The intent was to get districts that hold the contracts together in the same room and let them talk to one another. And we drew 5 districts. Some of the topics that we went over besides the project descriptions of their experiences were kind of this low-hanging fruit idea, the assessment form that we just put out. There was descriptions of the individual projects, benefits and complications around digester projects. They seem to be coming in all different flavors. There were really great notes taken. We're going to have like some proceedings from the meeting coming out, hopefully within the next couple of weeks. I think we've already had a positive step in that SharePoint now as a folder that districts can click on and go into that contains links to videos that Dale and you had created under I think Cornell's help and some others there, as well as a number of different presentations that have been given over the past couple years, let's say, as a resource for districts to access and try to learn more as we, I don't know, try to prioritize that practice given its greenhouse gas reduction potential. The other thing I'll just touch on are the regional meetings that has been mentioned a couple of times. Mine was last Monday. I want to say it went really well. I think we had some 30 districts or 30 people show up for 12 or 13 districts. A lot of board members, some technicians in the room. And we had a pretty good agenda that included not only the AIM stuff that Greg has covered, but the survey regarding the committee strategic plan that's coming up. We had open discussion on the CRF program as it's evolving. Guest speaker Jenny Whiteman from Cornell came in, talked about greenhouse gas inventory with a special emphasis on covers and flares, again knowing how important they are. And I think it went really well. And what was most encouraging, besides just the transfer of information, was kind of the attitude within the room, which was, boy, it's nice to get back together and talk directly to one another. And all the program managers were very receptive to input from districts. I think it's very worthwhile to have those meetings, and I think based on the comments that were going around the room, we could probably look forward to more meetings, which went over really well in both settings, both the managers meeting and that cover and flare meeting that I talked about. So, other than that, just a lot of closeouts and board meetings, getting some performance measures done, trainings done for board members and the like. So, pretty busy.
Thanks. Okay. Drainage is putting dinner on that center tomorrow at 4 o'clock. I got a doctor's appointment at 8 o'clock in the morning. That's about my week going this week. But thank goodness I can walk into the doctor's office. I don't have blood pressure.
That's great. That's awesome.
Awesome.
Nope, good.
Tyler?
Thank you. Thank you as well.
You're up.
A couple things. Final regional managers meeting in Raybrook tomorrow. Looking forward to that. Similar agenda. A lot of colleagues joining in person and remotely to give some presentations. Should go pretty well, so we're looking forward to that. We do have some new staff on at St. Lawrence County. I probably mentioned at a previous meeting, the manager and clerk had resigned in the last 5 or 6 weeks. So new staff has joined and they should be on this week. So looking forward to kind of helping them transition into their programs and kind of continue stuff going on up there. The leadership conference that's mainly supported by CDEA, NRCS, State Committee is going on July 18th to 21st. I'm sure Caitlin will mention that, but just to say that we're the folks that were involved in the 2016 one, myself included, are trying to help support that in the background. So I might be spending a day up there to kind of help the facilitators lead that and sort of encourage folks that are new to it to get the most out of it and experience the camaraderie and the team building they'll have up there in July, which should be nice. Otherwise, a lot of AEM stuff going on, lining up, round 18, giving some advice to districts on how to facilitate this new round coming up, while at the same time winding down round 17. A few amendments came through for tier 4 projects, so kind of helping districts with that final push. We're in the last construction season of that. So hopefully, as the weather permits, we'll get out in the field and see some of those projects, and that's shaping up to be a good summer. So, thanks.
Thanks.
Real quick before PJ goes, I just want to add in there, Ryan, since you mentioned the Leadership Institute, I wanted to recognize Tyler Knapp, who is on our state committee staff, who was accepted into that institute. It's a really great program and a great achievement for Tyler, so I just want to say congratulations to him on that.
Thanks, Bethany.
Yeah, awesome.
Looking forward to it.
PJ.
Thanks, Dale. Just a couple quick things. A lot of project closeouts, just like the other guys have mentioned. Those are ongoing. We've done quite a few, and there's more in the works here in the next few weeks. So looking forward to that. As Scott touched on, that cover and flare meeting with the districts, I thought that was very helpful. A lot of good comments and good real-world examples about how cover and flares implementation, specifically at the district level, work. So that was very helpful for me, and I thank Scott for taking all the time to put that together. As others have said too, the managers' meetings were a tremendous success, another opportunity to hear from districts on what they feel we should put in our strategic plan. We had some great discussions on our programs and several other things, so I was very happy to be a part of that. I went to the USC meeting with Scott the other day on Friday, and they talked about a whole bunch of different things, one of which really caught my interest. and that's the urban nutrient management program opportunity. So there's going to be a date here in the future where DEC is going to put on a course on urban nutrient management. So I'm excited to be able to attend that, and once we get that information set, once we have the date available, we'll make sure to send that out to everybody. So if anybody else is interested in that. Also working with Ryan and some other state committee staff on our NYACD course descriptions. Those are due tomorrow, so we'll get, I know your meeting's tomorrow, so we'll get something written up and sent in so we don't get in trouble there. And the skills workshop as well, I'm working on a stormwater course with Ron and Greg, and we'll get some folks in to talk a little bit about what's required for a stormwater management plan and the documentations that districts will need to help the farm owners file and things like that. And as far as just an update on our Finger Lakes Round 2 project, that's ongoing. We just got a fully executed contract, and within a day, Yates County, which is the local project administrator, submitted a voucher to us for 90% of the funding. So we're hoping this fall to get some cover crops in and go through that money and finish that early. And then just a few other, as Ryan touched on, we do have some staff in my region that will be leaving, and then we also have some positions that are being backfilled. So that's kind of nice, and I'm happy to help the districts with anything they need as far as staffing or anything else. Just let me know and come down and give you a hand. And that's all I have.
What are they trying to, what urban nutrients are they trying to control or manage?
So for instance, it looks at like residential yards, who's applying true, chemicals like a True Green type of service, or even residential services. Obviously DEC has phosphorus limitations, but there's a lot of landowners, golf courses, cemeteries, maybe even things like that, to sort of just look at how non-farm landowners can reduce nutrient input into these watersheds. So they hope to develop a plan, which I would assume would be similar to an agricultural plan, but more targeted toward a very small area.
Okay.
So yeah, should be interesting.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thanks, Dale. Nothing new.
Nothing, okay. Over to you, Bethany.
Thank you, Dale. I'll go really quick, I guess. A couple of extra things to update the group on. On June 8th, we had a technical advisory committee meeting. That was the first one of this year. We had great participation, and we were able to hear a presentation from Greg about the AIM-based 18 changes, and had some discussion surrounding those, which was really great warm-up for our regional managers meetings the following week. We also discussed some potential updates to the New York State Soil and Water Conservation Committee soil health policy that we use for our cost share programs. That policy establishes flat rates for soil health practices. So we're working through potentially updating some of those flat rates and adding potential best management practices. So more to come on that, but those initial discussions were had back a couple of weeks ago. We also talked about some potential pilot projects that would potentially be supported through the funding that was set aside from the CRF program. At that time, it was discussed that we needed to provide a little bit more information on those particular projects and continue those discussions in July and potentially August. So more to come on that as well. I do want to note to the committee that we are working on, or would like to work on, a more formalized process for those potential projects and establish a step-by-step process that folks can follow in order to request any of those funds. I won't talk much more about the regional managers meetings, but I have been able to participate in all of those so far, most in person, but I was able to call in on Friday for Region 1 out in Batavia. Those have been a really great opportunity for me, stepping into this new role as executive director, to really learn the issues and goings on out there in the various regions across the state. So I've been very grateful for the ability to participate in those conversations. We are also continuing to work on the state committee strategic plan update. At the beginning of May, a survey was sent out to districts to gain feedback on how they all felt the, current strategic plan was implemented. Again, props to Tyler for developing an awesome digital survey platform that spit out some really cool statistical analysis that we were actually able to share with districts, and we'll be sharing at the managers meeting tomorrow. So what I was able to do, and actually at all of the regional managers meetings, was talk in smaller groups with districts to gain even further feedback on specific questions and specific responses that kind of came back as part of that survey. So once all of the managers meetings are wrapped up, what I would like to do is kind of summarize all of that feedback from both the survey and then the extra conversations that we have had at the managers meetings, and present that to the state committee probably in July. I'd like to set that goal for myself to share that with everybody, because once we've been able to gather all that feedback and get it in a good spot, then I think we're in a good place to start drafting updates to the strategic plan. So more to come on that, but the feedback has been awesome. And I'll just mention this as well on behalf of Brian Rahm. He had to step off the call, but he asked that we mention that the New York Soil Health Field Days events have been scheduled. He did post a link in the chat, or maybe that was just private. Maybe we can we copy and paste that and post that to everybody. Melissa's going to work on getting the link into the chat for folks, but I did make sure, or I did let them know that I would make sure to mention that to the group.
That email also just went out.
Oh,
to
perfect.
districts.
Okay, well, good, then we're
So,
getting it on there.
Look for an email about more information on that.
Okay, cool. That is it for me at this time. Melissa?
I have nothing, thank you very much.
I'm all set. Thank you.
NYACD annual meeting is at Hampton Inn Penn Yan, October 24th through the 26th. Blanche has pretty much all the sessions set up at this point, and Blanche and President Sam Casella sent a letter to the governor in opposition of the Stream C bill, which had passed the Assembly and the Senate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have nothing, thanks.
A brief update for CDEA. As Bethany mentioned, we have our upcoming leadership conference that will be held at the Forest Ranger School. And it's going to be a great day. Sean Murphy has headed up organizing that. People who attended the previous leadership conference will be invited to return and mentor our new attendees this year. Lots of leadership building and teamwork skills will be covered there as well. Tom Esplin is heading up our conservation skills workshop that's slated for September. He has moved the skills workshop to Auburn this year to give Portland County some relief for that. There's a great committee of volunteers who are working to organize classes, lots of field trainings, coordinating site visits, and in the field, on the ground field experiences. So be on the lookout for that announcement in September. And our Vice President, Jessica McLaughlin, has begun work on the Water Quality Symposium. She has sent out requests for proposals for hotels, and she will also begin to host meetings to organize classes for the event that's slated for March 2024. We had a meeting that was scheduled for July 6th. We're going to poll our partners and our executive committee to reschedule that for a little bit later. We've heard a lot of people are concerned about the 4th of July weekend, And we will plan this for the beautiful Thousand Islands with possibly a boat tour. So we hope that everyone will be able to come in person. Again, we will hold a Zoom option as well. And I want to extend my sincere gratitude to the state committee for giving conservation districts so many opportunities for feedback, from AIM to the strategic plan to these managers meetings. It's really wonderful to be able to partner with you and to have these open lines of communication. So Bethany and all, thank you very much.
Mr. Simon?
Oh.
Anything to share?
Just a couple of things real quick. Division of Land and Water Resources continues to be very busy in a host of different program areas, and I think you all know what we're up to in the soil and water conservation programming areas, so I'll just mention very quickly Ag Protection, the round 19 of our Farmland Protection Implementation Grants. RFA is currently out, and there's no deadline for the RFA. Applications are being accepted on a rolling basis until funds are exhausted. We know there's a lot of interest in this program across the state, farmland protection implementation. So I'm very excited to hear the status report that Dave is providing to us weekly on that. We, as Bethany mentioned earlier, are also taking over for the Department of the Administration of the Wood Products Development Council. Very special thank you to Jeff Kehoe, who has been doing the lion's share of outreach in regards to the reappointment and new appointment for that council itself, and also the administration of and completion of existing projects that are running through that council. So more to come, and hopefully we'll be able to hold a Wood Products Development Council meeting by the end of the year with that new membership. Stay tuned. I think there's going to be a lot of overlap, crossover with a lot of the work that conservation districts are doing as we kind of also look at this council in a way to help meet some of the Ag and Forestry Advisory Panel recommendations regarding forestry and forest management. And I don't know, there's a whole host of other things to talk about, but I'll leave it there, and thanks so much for allowing me to attend today.
Well, thank you. There are a couple folks on the line. I want to I'll go through my list here to make sure that everyone has an opportunity. First, Erica, do you have anything for the group?
Yeah, I don't have any updates, but just want to echo both your comment earlier and some other comments in the chat for appreciation for the updates on some of the projects that we shared at the end, and certainly appreciate all the updates shared across many members, staff, and as well as district staff, but seeing some of that work in action is always really exciting to see how that came together. Yeah. So appreciate the time for folks putting that together and sharing it together.
Thank you. I did, share one little comment from Brian Rahm, our Cornell Cal's advisory member, but I wanted to give the opportunity. Jared Copley is still on the line. Is there anything else that you'd like to add today?
I don't have any updates other than what Brian had sent you.
All right. DEC, any updates for the group today? Okay, how about Department of Health?
Yes, a couple of things I'd like to mention. One is it was interesting to see the tree planting presentation. Thanks for that presentation. It's New York City DEP has a program mostly operating in the east of Hudson, basically Westchester and Putnam counties, what they call Tree for Tribs, and it's a very similar program where they actually, not local kids, but they actually bring in kids from New York City. They have model forest programs, and they also do the Trees for Tribs, and so it's very, very similar with the way the trees are laid out and all the many trees per acre, all that sort of stuff. But it was interesting that you found fourth grade kind of an ideal age for kids. Down in the lower counties, they found that actually middle school was really an ideal age. Now, granted, these are kids who grew up in New York City, and they probably had a little bit of earth science class at that point in time. So they try to sort of put those two things together, and it is like you said, it's really cool how excited the kids are, to do that sort of stuff. And they also have a teacher education program that they run out of a model forest, where they have overnight accommodations. And I forget what the number of teachers they're able to educate on a summer basis. But so they do quite a bit with education. Obviously, the city spends a lot of money on the upstate watersheds, so this is good education to convince people that their taxpayer dollars are well spent. The other thing I would say is that within the New York City watershed, they have made the switch completely over to AIM-based system of planning. They had for decades actually kind of used their own system, which was developed right about the time AEM was coming together in the mid '90s. But it was highly encouraged that they adopt the AAM system to better keep track of, on a statewide basis, also to apply for state grants. That would be the way to go. It's a lot of it had to do with really, setting up the computer systems and stuff to do something different. And but they were already in that process because of accounting issues they had several years back. So they had brought in new staff, and they really kind of had to reestablish all their systems, accounting for funds, and all that sort of stuff. And so it kind of played out. It was unfortunate that they lost a couple of years of implementation, but it actually ended up working out really, really well in the long term. So right now, everyone's in those programs is very, very happy. Both the conservation districts and New York City staff, that all the farm programs are running very smoothly and at full bore. So lots of happy people. That's all I got.
Thanks, Paul. How about Department of State? Kate, I saw you come off mute, but we can't hear you. We're still not hearing your audio. If there's anything you want updated, we can use the chat, and I'd be happy to share that with the group as well. So we'll just move on. SUNY ESF, are there any updates from Steve?
Yeah, I have one thing to mention. I know Greg mentioned related to soil health, the PFAS issue, and I think that came up at some prior meetings. I just wanted to mention that SUNY ESF, in collaboration with Clarkson and then engineering firm Barton Lajudas, is sort of in the early stages of doing some risk assessment work, really more related to source water protection, but really part of the project is mapping out PFAS sources. So that would be all sorts of things, old landfills, places that use firefighting foam, but then also ag land that might have had biosolids application, and then trying to relate that to water quality measurements of PFAS. So part of this is using existing data, but we also sort of anticipate making additional measurements, partially for water quality measurements from drinking water sources, but also potentially from sort of ag land if there were interested sort of collaborators. So just to kind of put that out there, at least initially, we have some budget to do that in-house, and ESF and Clarkson both have analytical facilities that run PFAS. So just to mention that, we're sort of figuring out where to go with it, but if people were interested in collaborating, we'd be interested in working with them.
Thank you. Circle back to Kate one more time from DOS. Oh, there we go. Okay, never mind. I see your chat. So Kate asked us to share that the CFA closes at the end of July. Some additional points for projects will be given for projects implementing watershed plans. Make sure to check out the RFAs. We will also have funding this year for county-wide resiliency planning, as well as, excuse me, smart growth planning and zoning. Thank you. Thank you very much, Kate. Sorry about the audio issues. So that wraps up all of our advisory members. I guess at this time I will open up the floor to, well, if there's any other staff on the line that would like to give a report, or conservation districts, members of the public, please feel free to share an update with the group. Okay, Dale, I guess hearing no one jumping right off to unmute their lines, I think we are good to move on.
Thanks, Bethany. Thank you, everyone, for all the reports. Very good ones. Our next meeting is proposed July 18th. What's everybody think? Voting members?
I'm good so far.
Dave's good. Scott, what do you think?
At this point, it's good.
Okay, Darren?
So far, so good.
Okay, Erica?
Works for me.
All right, we got it. July 18th,
Great.
next time, guys. Anything else?
I'll just add that for our next meeting, we'll have a similar format, location here in Albany, location in Syracuse, as well as call-in options. For voting members, if you will be calling in from another public location, I'll be reaching out approximately 2 weeks in advance of that meeting, so we confirm that up, so I can get the agenda and media advisory sent out to whoever it gets sent out to. So, that is an option on the table as well. That's it.
Great.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Have a good 4th of July. Meeting's adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.
Have a great day.
Happy 4th.